Wargames, evaluating the strategic milestones of the U.S. and China in a hypothetical conflict.
Introduction.
The ongoing rivalry between the United States and China, particularly concerning Taiwan, has led to an increased interest in military simulations or wargames. These exercises serve as a tool for think tanks and military institutions to project potential military engagements and assess strategic outcomes. However, while these simulations provide valuable insights, they also highlight critical limitations, particularly in addressing the complex political landscape surrounding military decisions.
Key findings from wargames.
1. Destructive potential of conflict. Wargames conducted by institutions such as the Center for Strategic and International Studies (CSIS) have consistently illustrated the catastrophic consequences of a military confrontation between the U.S. and China.
For example, one CSIS simulation projected that the U.S. could lose as many as 200 aircraft and 20 warships in an initial conflict, underscoring the immense destruction that such a war would entail.
This high casualty rate reflects the advanced military capabilities of both nations and the potential for rapid escalation.
2. Political implications and limitations.
While wargames are useful for military analysis, they struggle to effectively address political questions such as deterrence and escalation management. Analysts note that the asymmetry between military and political information complicates the design of wargames that can simultaneously explore both realms. Political decisions in wartime are influenced by a multitude of factors, economic, diplomatic, and military, that are often inadequately represented in simulations focused primarily on military outcomes.
3. Narrow focus of current wargames.
Many wargames assume a scenario centered around Taiwan without considering the broader geopolitical dynamics at play.
This narrow focus leads to critiques of existing simulations,
suggesting that they overlook the complex motivations and potential involvement of multiple parties in a U.S. China conflict. It is argued that a potential war would likely not be confined to Taiwan but could escalate into a more extensive regional or even global conflict.
4. Methodological improvements needed.
To enhance the realism of wargames, experts advocate for methodologies that draw from historical examples of great power conflicts rather than relying solely on current peacetime relations. This approach would allow for the creation of scenarios that reflect the multifaceted nature of international conflicts, including the potential for global involvement and the complexities of wartime decision-making.
Timeline of relevant developments.
December 2022, Daniel Araya discusses the geopolitical implications of the U.S. China rivalry with a focus on military advancements in space. January 2023, Timothy R. Heath critiques the effectiveness of wargames in addressing deterrence against a potential Chinese attack on Taiwan, emphasizing the need for simulations to incorporate the complexities of political decision-making. Ongoing, various think tanks including CSIS and the Center for a New American Security (CNAS) have conducted numerous wargames that simulate military engagements, revealing alarming insights about the potential scale and destruction of a hypothetical conflict.
Analysis of key sources. Source 1: Geopolitical landscape.
Daniel Araya's article highlights the broader geopolitical implications of the U.S. China rivalry, noting that military engagements are not isolated incidents but part of a larger strategic contest, particularly in the Asia-Pacific region. The article emphasizes the potential consequences of military posturing and the importance of diplomatic engagement to avoid escalation.
Source 2: Methodological challenges.
Timothy R. Heath's analysis delves into the methodological challenges of wargames, particularly their limitations in addressing political questions. He argues that the information requirements for military and political decisions differ significantly, making it difficult to design wargames that effectively explore both areas. Heath suggests that wargames focused on military outcomes often fail to capture the complexities of political decision-making, which can lead to misleading conclusions. Source 3: Military strategy and operational considerations. The SICE report provides an in-depth examination of various military strategies in the context of a potential Chinese invasion of Taiwan. It discusses the operational challenges faced by the U.S. and its allies, including logistics, force readiness, and the need for a coordinated response. The report underscores the importance of understanding the operational environment and the potential for rapid escalation in the event of conflict. Common themes across sources. 1. Destructive nature of conflict. The potential devastation of a U.S. China conflict is a recurring theme, with all sources acknowledging the severe consequences of military engagement. 2. Need for improved wargaming methodologies. There is a consensus on the necessity of enhancing wargame design to better capture the complexities of political decision-making. 3. Limitations of current wargame designs. The narrow focus on Taiwan and the assumptions drawn from peacetime contexts are recognized as significant limitations in the analysis of potential conflicts. Conclusion. The exploration of U.S.-China relations through wargames reveals both the potential outcomes of military engagements and the profound complexities involved in political decision-making. As the stakes of potential conflict rise, there is an urgent need for more nuanced and historically informed approaches in wargame design. By integrating lessons from past great power conflicts and addressing the multifaceted nature of international relations, policymakers and analysts can better prepare for the uncertainties of future engagements. The ongoing rivalry between the U.S. and China necessitates a re-evaluation of existing methodologies to ensure that wargames serve as effective tools for understanding both military and political dimensions of conflict. The content provided presents several counterintuitive insights regarding the use of wargames to evaluate the potential outcomes of a U.S.-China conflict, particularly around the Taiwan issue. Here are some of the counterintuitive points highlighted. 1. Wargames as limited predictors. While wargames are often perceived as tools for predicting military outcomes, they are significantly limited in their ability to analyze political implications. This suggests that reliance on wargames for strategic foresight may lead to oversimplified conclusions that overlook the complexities of real-world decision-making. 2. Destruction versus deterrence. The wargames indicate that a U.S.-China conflict would be immensely destructive. Yet they struggle to provide insights into how to deter such a conflict. This paradox reveals that while wargames can simulate destruction, they cannot effectively guide policymakers on how to avoid the very scenarios they depict. 3. Assumptions based on peacetime dynamics. Many wargames are criticized for basing their scenarios on peacetime assumptions, which can misrepresent the realities of wartime. This creates a disconnect where the gaming scenarios may not accurately reflect the motivations and behaviors of states when in a state of conflict, suggesting that the very foundation of these simulations is flawed. For narrow focus on Taiwan, the tendency to focus primarily on Taiwan as the flashpoint for conflict is misleading. Historical analysis suggests that great power wars are often driven by a multitude of factors beyond a single issue. This narrow focus can lead to an underestimation of the broader geopolitical context that would influence a U.S.-China conflict. 5. Simplistic view of U.S.-China relations. The assumption that U.S.-China relations are fundamentally ambivalent or non-hostile until a crisis over Taiwan arises is overly simplistic. It ignores the complex web of historical grievances, strategic competition, and mutual perceptions that would likely characterize relations leading up to any potential conflict. 6. Limited scope of military engagement. The wargames often envision a conflict confined to the region around Taiwan, which contradicts historical precedents of great power conflicts that typically involve multiple nations and extend beyond initial theaters of engagement. This assumption underplays the potential for a broader international conflict. 7. Misrepresentation of political decision-making. The content emphasizes that military-focused wargames fail to account for the intricacies of political decision-making, which includes economic and diplomatic considerations. This highlights a critical gap in how conflict scenarios are modeled, as they often disregard the multifaceted nature of political calculus in wartime. 8. Need for historical context. the suggestion that wargames could benefit from modeling scenarios based on historical great power conflicts is counterintuitive because it challenges the current reliance on abstract simulations. This indicates a need to draw lessons from past wars to better understand potential future conflicts, rather than only focusing on contemporary dynamics. 9. Escalation management challenges. The difficulties in managing escalation during wartime are often understated in military simulations. The complex interactions and unintended consequences that arise in actual conflict scenarios are not easily replicated in wargames, suggesting that their predictive power regarding escalation dynamics is limited. 10. Criticism of current methodologies. The critique of existing wargaming methodologies as being inadequate for exploring political questions reflects a broader concern that many defense strategies may be built upon shaky foundations. This calls into question the validity of conclusions drawn from current wargaming practices. Advocating for a more nuanced approach that incorporates historical insights and broader geopolitical considerations. These counterintuitive insights challenge conventional wisdom about the utility of wargames in strategic military planning and highlight the need for a more sophisticated approach to understanding potential conflicts between major powers like the U.S. and China. The report on U.S. China conflict and the implications of wargames, exploring hypothetical military engagements particularly concerning Taiwan, provides critical insights that many readers may overlook. Here are several significant aspects of the report along with explanations of their importance. 1. Destructive potential of conflict. The report highlights the catastrophic consequences of a potential U.S.-China military confrontation. As evidenced by projections from wargames like the one conducted by the Center for Strategic and International Studies (SIZE), the loss of 200 U.S. aircraft and 20 warships illustrates the devastating scale of such a conflict. This serves as a stark reminder of the human and material costs associated with military engagements, which are often abstracted in political discussions. The significance lies in the urgent need for policymakers to consider these potential outcomes seriously, as they can affect decision-making related to military readiness and diplomatic engagements aimed at conflict prevention. 2. Political implications and limitations of wargames. The report emphasizes that while wargames are valuable for military analysis, they fall short in addressing the political complexities inherent in international conflicts. The asymmetry between military strategies and political considerations complicates the reliability of wargame outcomes when applied to real-world scenarios. This point is crucial because it underscores the necessity of integrating political analysis into military simulations. The failure to do so can lead to misguided policies that rely on overly simplistic military assumptions without adequately considering the geopolitical landscape, economic factors, and the intricate web of alliances and rivalries that characterize international relations. 3. Narrow focus on Taiwan. The critique of wargames concentrating primarily on Taiwan is significant as it reflects a limited understanding of broader geopolitical dynamics. By not considering the multitude of factors that could influence a U.S.-China conflict, such as regional alliances, international responses, and historical contexts, the wargames risk portraying an oversimplified narrative of the conflict. This is important because it highlights how real-world conflicts often involve multiple actors and complex motivations, suggesting that policymakers must adopt a more comprehensive perspective when analyzing potential military engagements. 4. Historical context and methodologies. The report advocates for drawing from historical examples of great power conflicts to inform wargaming methodologies. This approach is significant as it encourages a more nuanced understanding of wartime decision-making that transcends current peacetime assumptions. Historical precedents can provide insights into the unpredictability and complexity of war, helping analysts to anticipate various scenarios and outcomes that might not be evident in present-day assessments. This can enhance the realism and applicability of wargames to current geopolitical challenges, ultimately leading to better preparedness and strategic planning. 5. Information asymmetry in decision-making. The distinction between military and political decision-making is another critical element that many may overlook. The report elucidates how military decisions often rely on quantifiable data about forces while political decisions encompass a broader range of factors including economic and diplomatic considerations. This distinction is significant because it can lead to a fundamental misunderstanding of the motivations and constraints that influence leaders' choices during a crisis. Recognizing this asymmetry can help analysts and policymakers develop more effective strategies for deterrence and conflict resolution. 6. Implications for alliances and multilateralism. The report suggests that assumptions about the involvement of other nations in a U.S. China conflict are often overly simplistic. The expectation that Japan and other allies would play a minimal role is challenged, indicating that alliances may evolve significantly in response to perceived threats. This is significant because it emphasizes the dynamic nature of international relations where the emergence of a crisis can lead to shifts in alliance behavior and military commitments. Understanding these potential changes is crucial for crafting effective diplomatic and military strategies. 7. Escalation and deterrence. The report raises essential questions about how to avoid escalation in a conflict that involves major powers. The complexities surrounding deterrence strategies are significant because they require a balance between demonstrating resolve and avoiding actions that might provoke an adversary. The insights from wargames can inform these discussions, but the report cautions against using military-focused simulations to address political issues. The significance here lies in the necessity of developing clear strategies for escalation management that account for the unpredictable nature of international conflicts. In summary, the report's exploration of U.S.-China relations through wargames reveals vital insights into the potential outcomes of military engagements while also underscoring the profound complexities involved in political decision-making. The limitations of current methodologies, the importance of historical context, and the dynamics of international alliances all contribute to a deeper understanding of the challenges ahead. Recognizing these nuances is essential for policymakers and analysts aiming to navigate the intricacies of modern geopolitical conflicts effectively. 1. Destructive potential of conflict. The simulations conducted by organizations like the Center for Strategic and International Studies (CSIS) reveal the catastrophic consequences of a potential U.S.-China military confrontation. For instance, one scenario projected the loss of 200 U.S. aircraft and 20 warships, highlighting the immense destruction that could arise from such conflicts. This emphasizes the importance of understanding the risks associated with military engagement and the need for strategic deterrence. 2. Political implications and limitations of wargames. While wargames offer insights into military strategies, their ability to address political questions such as deterrence, escalation, and alliance politics remains limited. The asymmetry between military and political information complicates the design of wargames that can effectively explore both realms. Political decisions are influenced by a wider array of factors, including economic and diplomatic considerations, which are often inadequately represented in military-focused simulations. 3. Need for comprehensive methodologies. There is a recognized need to improve wargaming methodologies to account for the complexities of geopolitical relationships and wartime dynamics. Current simulations often narrow their focus to Taiwan, neglecting the broader geopolitical context that would likely influence a U.S.-China conflict. Incorporating historical examples of great power conflicts can help create more realistic scenarios that reflect the multifaceted nature of international conflicts, including the potential for global involvement. 4. Understanding the multidimensional nature of conflict. A U.S.-China war would likely extend beyond a simple confrontation over Taiwan and involve multiple parties with complex motivations. Historical evidence suggests that conflicts between great powers are rarely confined to a single issue or region. Thus, wargames must account for the possibility of broader and more intricate engagements which can significantly impact strategic planning and decision-making. 1. The Peloponnesian War 431–404 BC. This conflict between Athens and Sparta serves as a classic example of how geopolitical rivalries can escalate into full-blown war. The Peloponnesian War was characterized by shifting alliances, strategic miscalculations, and significant military engagements,
demonstrating the complexities of warfare and political decision-making.
The war also illustrated the destructive potential of conflict and the difficulties inherent in managing international relations, much like the current concerns surrounding a U.S. China conflict. 2. World War I 1914–1918. The Great War is a pivotal historical case that reflects the consequences of entangled alliances, militarism, and nationalistic fervor. It began with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and spiraled into a global conflict involving many nations. The war involved complex military strategies, significant loss of life, and geopolitical upheaval, echoing the strategic calculations and potential consequences outlined in contemporary wargames simulating U.S. China tensions over Taiwan. 3. The Korean War 1950–1953. This conflict arose from the division of Korea into North and South following World War II and involved significant international stakeholders including the United States and China. The war was marked by rapid military engagements, shifting fronts, and the involvement of United Nations forces. It highlights the implications of regional conflicts involving great powers, the complexities of alliances, and the potential for escalation similar to the wargaming scenarios concerning a possible U.S. China conflict over Taiwan. In analyzing the future outlook for U.S. China relations, particularly in the context of hypothetical military conflicts such as those involving Taiwan, several predictions can be made based on the strategic milestones identified through wargaming exercises and geopolitical analyses. 1. Increased military engagement and competition. The U.S. and China are likely to continue increasing their military capabilities and presence in the Asia-Pacific region. This ongoing arms race may lead to heightened tensions, particularly around Taiwan, as both nations strive to assert their influence. Wargames suggest that as China's military modernization progresses, the balance of power may shift, prompting the U.S. to re-evaluate its defense strategies and alliances. Expect regular military exercises, naval deployments, and air patrols from both sides, which may further escalate the potential for conflict. 2. Complex geopolitical dynamics. Future conflicts will likely not be limited to a binary U.S.-China confrontation. The involvement of regional allies will become more complex, with countries like Japan, Australia, and India potentially playing pivotal roles. The political dynamics surrounding these nations' security commitments and responses will significantly influence the strategic landscape. Should a conflict arise, alliances may shift based on perceived threats, economic interests, and historical relationships. 3. Deterrence strategies and escalation management. Given the destructive potential of military conflict, future U.S. strategies will likely focus on deterrence and escalation management. The need to prevent miscalculations that could lead to a full-scale war will be paramount. This could involve enhancing communication channels between military leaders of both nations and developing frameworks to manage crises effectively. Wargames will continue to play a critical role in exploring various deterrence strategies with a focus on how to avoid escalation into nuclear conflict. 4. Economic interdependence versus military rivalry. Despite rising tensions, the economic interdependence between the U.S. and China will remain a crucial factor in mitigating conflict. This complex relationship may lead to a balancing act where both nations seek to avoid direct military confrontation while engaging in economic competition. Expect increased efforts toward negotiations and diplomacy that prioritize economic stability alongside military preparedness. 5. Technological advancements and cyber warfare. The future battlefield will increasingly incorporate advanced technologies, including cyber capabilities and artificial intelligence. Both nations will focus on developing new technologies that enhance military effectiveness and situational awareness, potentially leading to new forms of warfare. Cyber warfare will become a critical aspect of military strategy, with both sides targeting each other's infrastructure and information systems, further complicating the conflict landscape. 6.
Public opinion and political decision-making.
Public sentiment in both the U.S. and China will play a significant role in shaping governmental responses to potential conflicts. As wargames have highlighted, political decisions during wartime are influenced by various factors beyond military considerations, including domestic politics and public opinion. Future leaders may face increasing pressure to justify military actions, leading to more cautious approaches in engaging in outright conflict.
7. The role of multilateral institutions. The effectiveness of multilateral institutions in managing U.S. China tensions will be tested as both nations navigate their rivalry.
There may be a push to engage in dialogues through platforms like ASEAN, the United Nations, or other regional organizations. These institutions could play critical roles in de-escalating tensions and facilitating discussions on security cooperation.
8. Potential for proxy conflicts. As direct confrontation may be deemed too costly, proxy conflicts could become an avenue for both nations to exert influence without engaging in full-scale war. This may involve supporting rival factions in third-party countries or engaging in economic warfare.
Wargames suggest that such indirect confrontations could lead to significant geopolitical shifts without escalating to direct military engagement.
9. Adaptation of wargaming methodologies. As the complexities of U.S.-China relations evolve, wargaming methodologies will likely adapt to incorporate more nuanced political and economic factors. Future simulations may draw more heavily from historical precedents, focusing on the multifaceted nature of great power conflicts. This will enhance the realism of scenarios and better prepare analysts and policymakers for potential outcomes. Conclusion.
As tensions between the U.S. and China continue to evolve, the potential for conflict remains a critical concern for global security. Understanding the strategic milestones through hypothetical wargames provides valuable insights, emphasizing the need for robust deterrence, effective crisis management, and the importance of diplomatic engagement. The future landscape will be shaped by a combination of military preparedness, economic interdependence, and the intricate web of international relations, necessitating a multifaceted approach to avoid conflict and ensure stability in the Asia-Pacific region.